Hi, everybody. Welcome to week 4 of our class. Really looking forward to getting through some good content here with you and engaging as we progress through our course here. Some of the key objectives that I want to make sure that we're working towards this week for all of you are first and foremost making sure that at the end of the week, all of you feel comfortable explaining the major employment laws that are out there that companies are subjected to complying with that really over the last several decades have helped shape our current status around paid family leave and the position that the federal government's taking right now, where bills are being introduced and laws are being considered that might require employers to provide paid family leave or possibly even allow the government to take a more proactive stance and actually pay employees while they're missing time from work. And if you think about the natural progression that's taken place over the last 60 years, there have been several laws that have really scaffolded on each other that have gotten us to this point. So dating back to the Pregnancy Disability Act, the Americans with Disabilities Act, the Family and Medical Leave Act. Now we're getting to paid family leave that we're seeing take place not only at the state level, but again, these bills that are being introduced at the federal level that we will talk about through this week. So I want to make sure that you have this background and perspective on the regulatory environment that really got us here over the past several decades and what those laws look like that we're still forced to comply with today from a human resource perspective. Secondly, I want to make sure that you can describe the differences that exist in some of the terminology that's used. Oftentimes, some terms get interchanged a little bit, and when we talk about leave away from work, terms like parental leave or maternal leave or medical leave or family leave. Oftentimes those get bundled together, and there really is a distinct difference that exists between all of those. And I want to make sure that you clearly understand what those distinctions are and why they're important and how they tie back to pieces of legislation, or if you're working in human resources or for a business that's ready to introduce a paid family leave program, that you understand how those terms can really create distinct differences in the program administration setup and the benefit that you're really going to make available to your workers. Finally, I want to make sure that we analyze the various business reasons why companies sometimes elect to introduce paid family leave as a benefit to their workers, even in situations when they're not required to do so because of any federal or state law. The ability to attract and retain talent has gotten so competitive over the last, I would say last decade or so in particular. Very low unemployment rates, access to skilled talent is a little bit lower than what we would expect. So really trying to tap into that talent, attract, retain, and engage that workforce. Oftentimes benefits are used to do that. And I want you to understand how paid family leave is one of the more recent phenomenons that we're seeing take place, that employers are in fact trying to use that as a benefit and why it's important. And one of the ways that I think we can convey that message this week, and you'll find in your readings and resources, is a brief video from a company called Patagonia. The CEO of Patagonia, as well as several of the workers within the organization, created a video not only to express the importance of paid family leave as a benefit to their organization, but also the important role that it plays in terms of the establishment of the culture and how it aligns with the culture of their organization. And finally, maybe most importantly, their position as an organization, a private company in America, supporting the national mandate for paid family leave. So really pushing lawmakers in Washington, D.C. to consider implementing a federal statute that would require employers to provide paid family leave or introduce legislation that would basically fund through a federal program the payment of workers missing time from work for a paid family leave. So a really good video that's out there, and I think it helps shape up a little bit about why employers might have an interest in doing that. Second video that we put out there this week is a video that really brings together two of the largest think tanks around employment issues in America and Washington, D.C., that really help shape and form many of the employment laws that we see. One is the American Enterprise Institute, one is the Brookings Institute. One is very liberal leaning, and one is very typically very conservative leaning. Those two organizations over the last several years have partnered together to look at the issue of paid family leave and help really understand where are their opportunities, what are they seeing at the regulatory level, are these states that are introducing paid family leave really working? Is the legislation working the way it was intended to work? Are employers suffering? Are employers seeing favorable results? All with the emphasis and understanding and objective of being that their belief is that at some point we as a nation must implement a federal statute that would provide paid family leave to workers. So it's really great. You'll get a chance to hear both sides of them come together and talk about why they've agreed on this issue and how they would see this shaping up. The third video that you'll see out there is my lecture this week, where I'm going to unpack not only the videos and readings from the week, but also go through this legislative update on this history of laws that have been out there and what they look like and how they've scaffolded to get us to this point of having paid family leave, be at the forefront of most human resource leaders' thought process right now. I've also included a couple of links. One is a link to a Family and Medical Leave Act guide for employers to be compliant with that statute that's provided by the Department of Labor. A little bit of history here real quick, but we're going to unpack this much deeper during the course of the week. The Family and Medical Leave Act was signed into law in 1993 by then President Clinton. And really the law was intended to offer workers the ability to take time off from work, 12 weeks, in any 12-month period, to either care for their own serious health condition or care for a family member. So great intentions. The president, Congress, all the lawmakers at that time, these think tanks that really helped shape the language, ultimately believed that the diverse population of workers that we saw in the early 90s had a very distinct set of needs that weren't being met by any sort of federal statute. So an aging workforce, more and more single parents, more and more workers who were responsible for caring for elderly parents. So this law was intended to give workers a little bit of flexibility, workplace flexibility, by allowing them to take time off from work, but it was unpaid. So if you fast forward now 30 years, many of the lawmakers at the federal level right now are saying, boy, we see the same thing. Our aging workforce has gotten even older. We see more single parents, unfortunately, higher divorce rates. So the work population has really changed tremendously from a demographic perspective. And does this law, Family and Medical Leave Act, still meet our needs? Or is this restriction of it being unpaid too much? So you'll see the compliance-related documentation that the Department of Labor publishes. The Department of Labor is the departmental agency in Washington, D.C. that oversees and is responsible for the compliance, employers' compliance with the Family and Medical Leave Act. So that employer guide will be very helpful for you. One of the assignments this week is actually a Q&A, a multiple choice 25-point question quiz. And it's all about the Family and Medical Leave Act. So it's going to, that guide will help you tremendously in navigating this quiz. You also have access to any other research that you may have done for the week and all of the content that we've already covered through the course as well. But again, that quiz would be multiple choice, and you can use the content and collateral that we've shared with you throughout the class as you take that as well. The final piece of documentation that we have out there this week is called Emerging Trends in Paid Family and Medical Leave. It's actually a published document that's put together by a consortium of employers who are working together, companies like Nestle and several other companies that have come together to say, we believe as an employer population that paid family leave is important. Several of those companies have already introduced that benefit, and they talk about what it looks like to roll that out within their organization. Some of the considerations that employers need to make, and some of the pitfalls and learnings that these organizations had as well. So it's a really powerful document, and I've made that available for you as well. We talked a little bit about the assignments already with the quiz, 25-point quiz. The other two assignments for the week, one, the same as prior weeks in the past, by Sunday at 11:59 Eastern Standard Time this week, I'm going to ask that you submit to me the KWL document, the form that we have been using, telling me what did you know about this week's content? What do you still want to know about this week's content? And what were some of the key learnings that you felt like you obtained from this week's content as well? So looking forward to receiving that. And finally, in our weekly discussion forum, I'm going to take a little bit of a different approach this week. This week, I really want you to really analyze everything that you've processed thus far and formulate an opinion or a viewpoint about a topic. And the topic is really going to be this question about paid family leave at a federal level. And the question ultimately is going to be, should the federal government in America introduce legislation that either would provide paid family leave paid for by the government or require employers to provide paid family leave to workers? Think about that and what it really means based upon the readings, based upon what you've seen, based upon any independent research that you did. Come up with an opinion either defending that action or saying you don't think that's a good action at all. And make sure that you cite all of your references, your content that you did research on. Make sure that it's appropriately cited and referenced as well. That's about it for the week. I'm going to get busy posting the lecture online in the shell. We're in week 4 of the class, and I really appreciate everything that you've done so far, and I look forward to partnering and engaging with you. As always, if you have any questions, you have my contact information. Please feel free to reach out to me at any time and let me know how I can help you, and I look forward to next week. Thanks so much.